check your Instagram messages once we're done with this.
Yes, I will, Chris. And we are setting up the meeting, and we are live. Hey, everybody. This is Andrew with the We Are Ryzen podcast. I am joined once again by my co-host, who is not going to be the new CEO of WWE, J. Christian Gary from Focus Fights.
Hey, y'all. How's it going? And obviously, if you look at Andrew Benjamin, you know now that he's looking a little clearer, so to speak. Me, I'm just trying to work out what I got. But still, though, we are here to talk about the Ryzen Women's Super Atomweight Grand Prix, not our bad facial features, with two men who know good and well about the mixed martial arts scene, and that is Mark Picos, otherwise known as MarQ, the Women's MMA News blog, and Charles Jewett, aka CJ Sobukaku, who loves to put over Japanese MMA for his own blog, sobukaku.com. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing great. WombatSports.com. I know I haven't been doing anything lately, but it's been exciting to see what's been going on this year so far. And I think we're kind of leaning into a really good run after this pandemic is kind of settled. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months, especially with this Ryzen card.
And you, CJ? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's great to be on. It's great to see Mark again. I think the last time I saw Mark in person, we were both in Vegas for an Invicta show, and I was a broke college student, so he was kind enough to let me sleep on the floor of his hotel room, and we watched the fights together. Watched, I believe, Ayaka Hamasaki defeat Amber Brown. So that was a couple of years ago, and it's great to be on here with him again to talk about Ayaka Hamasaki of all people.
Well, TJ, you're always if Invicta ever comes back to town, you're always welcome to crash at my place.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
But by the way,
I'm pretty sure I bought an airline ticket on Frontier Airs, that airline where the pilot, the anonymous pilot, said he wouldn't even let his own family fly on the plane, and where if you want a pillow, it costs $10. So it was definitely a budget trip, and I appreciate all the help.
Just to let you know.
I should also mention that Amber Brown is actually, I think, competing next week. So yeah, it's kind of full circle here because Ayaka's obviously also competing.
And yeah, just to let everybody know, we are in 1080p now. No more blurry, whatever it was, 360p or whatever it was. But
you're in 1080p, Andrew. The rest of us need work.
Oh, that's true. But yeah, Ryzen Atomweight Grand Prix. First thing I'm going to just say, can we all agree? Is this not like the best poster? Since maybe like the Great White Shark Pride poster, if you remember that one.
Of course.
I remember, CJ, you said that there was another, was it Bellator that made like a similar promotion poster or something? And it looked
both Bellator and I think Strikeforce actually had a similar gimmick with the cards. I think Strikeforce did it for the Misha Tate tournament with her, Hitomi Akano, Karina Dam, and then back in the day. But Bellator also did it. But the Bellator poster was a much shittier version. This poster is awesome.
And Bellator still manages somehow to create shitty posters for like all their shows. Do you see their posters? They're just like two fighters that are like going like this to each other or something. But yeah, can I expect to eventually see that on your wall, CJ?
But it will be right here in the future. Arrangements are being made. Back-end deals. Going through, alleys, meeting with shady figures.
I really hope Shannon does a really great poster for the Invicta FC 50 card. I mean, I would love to, first of all, love to be there for it. And second, to hopefully have a big, a nice poster for that. I mean, the person that does their posters, I think, is an absolute great thing. Hopefully, Ryzen will end up picking him up.
Oh yeah, I listen. All MMA promotions can take something from Ryzen, including UFC, when it comes to just promoting and making their their posters just like catching to the eye, and all that. And people may not think it's important, but I think it is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, first things off, I'm gonna start with you, CJ. we got 6 women announced. I'm sorry, 8. Wait, no, on.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I can't count. 1, 2,
It's
3,
8
4, 5.
women. It's
8,
4
yeah.
Japanese, 4 foreigners.
You always like to say that Japan loves a foreigner versus Japan
Mhm.
gimmick, and I think they must have heard you because that is what they booked every match so far in the first round. If you want to count Siwoo Park, you know, half and half, whatever. Like if you want to disqualify that, yeah, but whatever. But the rest are foreigner versus Japanese. What do you think about these matchups that Ryzen has made for the first round?
It's not just a theory. Pre-pandemic, there was only ever one fight in Rising that was a Japanese fighter versus a Japanese fighter in their women's division. And I believe that was Rena versus Miyu Yamamoto, who has Canadian citizenship, so they could still probably lean into the foreigner aspect a little bit. But no, this tournament looks awesome. It was pretty obvious who the Japanese fighters were going to be in it, but they're all superstars over here. And there's a lot of potential interesting fights and rematches in this tournament. Plus, the Hamasaki Aguilar fight has a ton of history in it. So I'm very excited for the tournament.
How about you, Mark?
I think just looking over the matchmaking, I think it's a really good card. I mean, this is probably one of the best matched opening rounds I've seen out of Ryzen in terms of a tournament. I mean, and we'll probably dig into each individual fight as it comes by, but just looking at how everybody's paired up, I think that, I mean, it's kind of hard to even predict who's going to be winning the opening round matches just from the way that they booked everything. So I'm absolutely excited to see these matches go down and see who ends up winning. But I suspect that we're going to see some really, really interesting surprises coming this opening round.
Jay Krish, my buddy, what do you think about this Atomweight GP?
Well, in a way, you got all types of different fighters coming into this tournament, with the exception of the fact that this is built like a Japanese versus foreigner card, even though you're not going to have anybody from outside of Japan seeing this. Because if you think about the matchup significance of it, you got Siwoo Park versus Kanazakura. Siwoo Park is looking to try and make her name off of something other than, kicking somebody's ass on New Year's Eve. You got Reina versus Anastasia Spetskiva. Spetskiva is looking to build her resume after becoming an IMMAF tournament winner, while Reina is looking to just prove that she's a shootboxing goddess. You got Ayaka Hamasaki versus Jessica Aguilar, and that fight's only historic for 2 reasons, because it was supposed to happen a dozen years ago, but due to the earthquake and tsunami disaster, it didn't, and because of the fact that Aguilar beat Megumi Fuji not once but twice. And obviously you got the battle of the unbeatens, Fontura. And yeah, you want to shake your head, CJ, and say that one of those losses that Fuji suffered to Aguilar to dispute, go ahead, I'm going to let you speak afterwards. But I think the fight that a lot of people are going to be looking forward towards is Laura Fontura versus Seiki Izawa, not just because it's a battle of 2 unbeatens, but it's a battle of 2 champions as well. So, that's all I got to say. I just can't wait to dive into these fights. But CJ, you basically want to shake your head and say that one of those Aguilar-Fuji fights was a dispute.
Aguilar is a wonderful person and a great fighter, but Megumi Fuji's retirement fight ending because of eye pokes should have been a no contest and not a TKO victory.
Well, they ended up changing it to a technical decision, actually, not a TKO. And Aguilar won it by technical decision, but I still agree with you as well. Yeah. It should have been a disqualification. They should have made it a no contest. I know that it was her last match, and they wanted to make sure there was actual result on it. But yeah, I was kind of stupid on that as well. I mean, the first fight, between her and Jag, I actually have more problems with Megumi's loss to Zoila Frosto than I do with her being beat by Jag.
Unspeakable fight. We do not speak of the Bellator finals.
Doesn't Aguiar have a history of kind of like weird finishes? The Fuji fight, the one of the Angela Magana fights as well. Isn't that like kind of like you just ZJ or MarQ? Maybe you could give some more history if you happen to know if like she kind of has some weird wins or finishes to some fights.
That's just the nature of the beast. She was fighting back when it's kind of like the Wild West of women's MMA. So weird results are going to happen. And Angela Mangana is a crazy person. So like any fight with her is probably going to have some sort of weird result.
You know, that's what they should have done. Ryzen should have, they should have booked Aguiar and Angela for their third match.
Mangana fight Monica Kanako Murata? Is that who she fought in Rising?
Yeah, Murata.
Yeah,
basically steamroll her, like destroyed her.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess we're already on it. Obviously the one most history, Hamazaki and Aguiar. I mean, it is. Is that the fight that you're looking forward to the most, CJ?
It is. Yes, in the opening. I mean, first off, it's not underselling any of the other fights in the opening round. There's a lot of interesting fights in the opening round. But for me personally, I was in Japan when the first fight was supposed to happen. So it is interesting to me because the first fight was going to happen and Ayaka Hamasaki had been fighting for less than 2 years. She was only 4-0 at the time. It was going to be her first match under real MMA rules because before that, all of her matches were under the Jules rules at the time with no strikes to the head of a grounded opponent. And Jessica Aguilar was coming off of the Bellator tournament. So it was a very interesting match because they're both still very early in their careers. Now it's like the opposite. The fight is happening not at the beginning of their careers, but at the very end of their careers. So it's just completely different situation, completely different circumstances. I mean, at one point in time, Ayaka Hamasaki was considered the best atomweight in the world, and she's still probably pretty high in those rankings. So the fact that it's happening now instead of way back then is very interesting to me. Plus, I was reading an interview from Gong magazine yesterday. Hamasaki has been training a lot more with Megumi Fuji since the second Seika Izawa fight. And you got to think, because even in the interview, Hamasaki said that even now she can't accept the results of Aguilar Fuji 2. Like, it's unbelievable. She can't, like, it's never registered in her mind. So there has to be some sort of you defeated my master, I'm going to defeat you aspect that she's thinking of. And I think there's gonna be a lot of drama. I think it's gonna be a great fight. I'm looking forward to any Rising confession video for it. And it was so close to happening. And then the fight looked like it was never going to happen. And now that it actually is happening, it's got a lot of my attention.
The other thing I'm also curious to know about. So after the Hamazaki Izawa second fight, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it sounded like, in interviews, Hamazaki wanted or was like hinting towards retirement. And so considering that she also did have like 2 back-to-back losses, like were you kind of surprised that they put her in?
No, because I thought she was more inclined to retire after the first loss to Izawa. But it seems like it's actually kind of lit a fire under her. And I think she's more motivated than she has been in a long time.
Mark, I'm going to ask you this. So Jessica Aguilar has not fought, I think, since 2020, if I'm correct. What do you think about that layoff? Do you think that can be at all a negative effect? And it's coming into such a fight like this with like somebody like Hamazaki, who's been basically just active, like routinely, in Ryzen.
Well, I mean, I think Jag's at the going towards the end of her career. I mean, her last fight was November 2020 against Danielle Taylor, and she lost by split decision. And that just tells you how her career has kind of declined. I mean, anybody else in the UFC would have probably at least won by unanimous decision over Danielle Taylor. Nothing against Danielle. I think she's a really great fighter, but she's kind of lost. I mean, she used to be the number one person at strawweight, and now she's kind of down here. And I mean, suffering a loss to Danielle Taylor. I mean, like I said, it's not no disrespect to Taylor, but it just goes to show you that Jag might be in that twilight of her career right now. So it'll be interesting to see how she does in Japan and using ropes. I think we're going ropes this time. So it'll be interesting to see how how it is going into this new environment as well. So with that and Ayaka, kind of having a fire up her butt in the history that that CJ was talking about, where she's basically avenging her master for a very bad loss. I think that's really, really interesting to say the least. I think I kind of miss the idea that a lot of the promotions don't go and dig into the fact that there are sometimes history in terms of fights, and this one has a really good storyline going into the match. So I'm interested to see how Jag is. I mean, I think Jag has other things going on. I don't think she's necessarily a quote unquote full-time fighter anymore. She's done a lot of more real estate and everything like that. She's safe, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously this is a bigger match for her. Maybe she's pressed a little bit harder to try to win this one. So it'll be an interesting fight. I think it's very, very even going into the night. So I won't be surprised either way.
I just let everybody know as well that Jag is actually undefeated against all Japanese fighters she has fought. That includes Sumi Sakai, Megumi Fuji twice, as we said, and also Emi Fujino. So she is 4-0 against Japanese fighters.
Really?
Yes.
I really think that the Emi Fujino fight was like Jag's peak. She looked untouchable in that fight. And I think Jag kind of suffered through the same thing that Megumi Fuji and Ayaka Hamasaki kind of suffered through. Is that when the UFC became available to women, they were already kind of on the downward. They had already peaked. They were a little bit too old. And I think that might explain some of Jag's results in the UFC. Because I think that World Series of Fighting run of hers was when she was at her best.
Mm-hmm. It was
that was a mistake, I think. I think that was a huge mistake in Jag's terms not to sign with the UFC at that point and go to the World Series of Fighting.
It was at her best, but in a way, when it came down to that particular fight, I just didn't like when the fight was shown on YouTube. I just didn't like how the fans basically said, oh, it's Jessica Aguilar fighting a Japanese jobber or something like that, knowing good and goddamn well Emi Fujino was one of the top competitors available out of Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, it basically showing how much fans actually gave a shit about Japanese MMA, not to mention women's MMA at that particular time.
And around that time, that was when Emi was challenging for the Invicta strawweight. I think strawweight or atomweight title. I think it was strawweight at the time. But right around that time, Emi was here in the States, fighting for the title.
Also, just want to add as well that Jag also has a win over the current strawweight champion in UFC, Carl Esparza. So
I want to preview this a little bit. I'm releasing an article later today. I'm detailing the history of Hamasaki and Aguilar.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love is in 2010, Bellator had that tournament. They had their first women's tournament, 115 pounds. And Jules had their lightweight tournament, which is what they called strawweight back then. If you look at the fighters that competed in those tournaments, it's like a who's who of UFC champions, rising champions. I think 8 of the people in those tournaments went on to fight in the UFC. It was just completely stacked back then. So it's I'm going to preview the article. It's kind of fun, but yeah, Jessica Aguilar was around when all these women were just getting started. Because I think that tournament that she was in, Carlos Barza was in it, Jessica Penne was in it, she was in it, Megumi Fuji was in it. It was just completely stacked.
CJ, I do have a question. I know that the earthquake happened and that prevented the fight from originally happening, but I figured that they would try to book this fight like as soon as they could. Do you want to have to know or have any guess why they didn't try to rebook this fight? I
don't have any concrete answers. My theory would be that after this fight was canceled, Aguilar went back and fought Fuji for the first time in Bellator, and then Hamasaki fought a couple times, then went to Invicta FC. So I think their careers just diverged, and the opportunity never came up again because they were in different promotions.
I see. So let's break down this fight. I mean, this obviously, like you said, I think you made a great point, CJ, that this is at the tail end of their career. And so how do you think this fight goes? We've seen at one point Hamazaki seemed to be undefeatable at Atomweight. But she's lost twice to Izawa and was the first person to ever finish her at Atomweight. And now we got Jag, who's on a 3-fight losing streak, seemingly coming out over 2 years. And so what do you think? How can this fight go?
A 4-fight winning streak, by the way.
Wait, a 4-fight losing streak?
Yep, 4-fight for Jag.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. 4. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure Mark can talk about this a lot as well, but I mean, I've always figured Jag is being more of a striker that really likes to use her jab. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Emi Fujino fight, she's jabbed Fujino to pieces in that fight. And Hamasaki, I mean, there's no secrets going into this fight. Hamasaki is going to try to take her down, get top control, and go for an arm lock of some type. And Jag is trying to keep distance with the jab and punish her as she comes in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because this is again in a ring, so I don't know how Jag's going to adjust to that. It's actually a little bit more beneficial for her being a striker because with takedowns it's a little bit more difficult because you don't have the cage kind of weighing you in. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I have to agree with CJ here. That's probably how it's going to end up happening, where it's basically a grappler versus striker match as well. I will say that I'm predicting that if Jag ends up losing, I think she retires. We've been seeing that a lot lately in some of this generation, maybe the past generation where the fighters are starting to hang up their gloves. I think this would be a perfect kind of match for her to say, that's it. If she does end up losing, I mean, who better to have lost to than Ayaka in your last night, in your last fight? With Ayaka, I think CJ's right. She still has a fire under her ass. I don't think she's going to retire or anything if she ends up losing. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting fight, and like I said, it's probably one of the closer fights in the card.
So, but before she retires, if she does retire, when Drake Riggs interviewed Megumi Fuji, she said that I would come out of retirement for only one fight, and that's against Jag. So that has to happen. It has to happen in a Ryzen wing. No matter what, before to officially both have official retirement for both. Sorry, yes, CJ, go ahead.
I think Fuji's so riddled with injuries from her career, but I would love to see that. But I think if Aguilar loses to Hamasaki and retires, retiring in the Rising ring is an appropriate stage level for Aguilar because she was such a big fighter in women's MMA. And also, it's kind of poetic that her retirement fight would be against Megumi Fuji, who Aguilar fought Megumi Fuji in her retirement fight. So I think it has a nice poetic ring to it. If that happens, we're making a bunch of assumptions, including that Aguilar loses. Yeah,
of course we are. But here's the thing, though. When you think about odds, and I don't want to go dive into all that Vegas, FanDuel, DraftKings bullshit. But when it comes down to the odds on which of these two is more suitable to advance in the Grand Prix, I mean, I just gotta ask, when it comes down to Jag Aguilar, let's just say she beats Hamasaki. Do you think that she'll most likely lose her next fight in September and just go on and hang the gloves in the middle of the ring?
Well, Chris, I just want to also point out that I think we don't even know who she'd be fighting, though. That's the thing. I think they're going to do a random drawing. I think that's how they always do it.
I don't think it's going to be random, based off of comments the fighters have made.
Oh, really? Oh.
Rena said that she would only fight Hamasaki if it was in the finals. I think there's some sort of acknowledgement that the teammates in the tournament, which is only them, wouldn't fight each other unless it was in the finals.
I see. Okay. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. What do you think about Chris's question, CJ?
Beating Hamasaki is not going to be easy. I think she's going to be very motivated, and she's still a very capable fighter. If she does beat Hamasaki, there are problems for her ahead because there are younger, faster strikers in the tournament that I think might give her problems. And I think Seika Izawa would also give her problems.
I mean, I just like to personally also answer and just say, if she does beat Hamazaki, I mean, you
Why
basically,
retire?
why retire? Yeah, basically, because you
I got-
basically, Mark, go ahead.
I got the bracket up so I can tell you what's going to happen. If Aguilar wins, she'll face the winner of Anastasia versus Reina.
There's no bracket. If you see a bracket, it's not real. There's no bracket for it.
I think that's just like a Wikipedia template that they make for all the GPs, because it's definitely not accurate.
Okay, gotcha. They're going to draw it that way, then I don't know.
That is interesting. that would be interesting though. Like if they, plus I wouldn't think that Ryzen would risk doing Hamazaki Reina as the next round. That's something that, like they said, that's something you say for like a final. That's a finals match.
Yeah, exactly.
So then again, listen, like you said, who knows? You never know what Ryzen's ever going to do sometimes.
Not to be overly cynical, but Ryzen's trying to court, I think, Fuji TV to get Fuji TV back, probably. And so if they're wanting to do that, they're going to want to keep as many of the popular fighters in the tournament as possible.
That's true, yeah.
So,
but I think that's the answer to your question. Yeah, if she beats Hamazaki, Aguiar's beaten the best Japanese atomweights, all of them. It should be 5-0 against all of them. So I don't see why she would need to retire, or why she would want to retire unless there's something else going on for her. Keep in mind, she trains out of ATT with one of the best coaches, Mike Brown. I'm presuming that Mike Brown will be in her corner. I don't know. CJ, do you know what the whole thing is with corners now and foreign fighters?
I think she's here with Mizuki.
Oh, really? Mizuki anyway?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Because they have the same Shu manages both of them. And Mizuki and Kanako not only know that, but Mizuki is coming to the US, to Japan for a little bit. I think she's going to be cornering Jag.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
I may be wrong, but I think that's what I heard.
Sucker Punch basically manages half of the strawweights in the world right now.
That's funny. I mean, Chris, answer your question yourself. What do you think? I mean, what do you think?
What do I think as far as the odds go?
Well, you said that like if she were to beat Hamazaki but then lose the next, would she retire? I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think that's what do you think is that even possible? Would you? I wouldn't see her doing that.
I mean, come to think of it, when it came down to her winning the WSOF women's strawweight title, and y'all say that it was at her peak, I mean, I do feel like her UFC run was a little disappointing, very disappointing in some cases. But in a way, this could be her one last dash with glory, so to speak. I mean, we've seen fighters, pull off a George Foreman, have that magic while they are at old age, I mean, I think when it comes down to Aguilar, yes, she's the greatest of all time as far as the women's atomweight division goes, even though she did have a very piss-poor UFC run. But I do think that if she manages to go on into the second round, manages to go on and beat Hamazaki for one, and then manages to go on into the second round, win that fight, and then go on to the finals and win, I think this might as well be one of the better comeback runs in mixed martial arts history. But do I think that it might happen? Probably not, but we'll see.
We have an interesting question from Alberto Esquivel, who asks, does Ryzen need a billionaire Japanese investor belief that it could bring Ryzen to the world level? AEW succeeded because the son of a rich father took the risk into a business he didn't have no interest in. CJ, I think you probably be best to answer that. Do you think does Ryzen need their their Tony Khan or whatever equivalent to I guess prop it up at a more international level?
No, I don't think that's the problem. Because even when Pride was doing really well, Japan's always shown at most a minimal interest in the international market.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what it is, what it is a simple thing. It's streaming. They need to be able to have that stream to be able to go across the world. You get those streams up, you got a lot more viewers. You're going to get more money. You're going to have a lot more people watching, and people will watch up late at night to watch Ryzen. And I think that's what's been the biggest detriment to the organization is the fact that it's not available to us in the United States or elsewhere. So if they can get back to having the ability to not only here in the United States and in North America, but everywhere, then you're going to get more fighters from internationally wanting to go and compete for Ryzen. It's a great event. It looks great. The production value is awesome. It's just the fact that we cannot see it over here in North America.
I think so I think for this show, if someone else brought it to my attention on social media, is that this show will be available on Ryzen Live and the Stream Pass. Now, the Stream Pass, I still don't know what the whole deal of it, if we can access it. I know Shu said he was able to access it, but then there were other people who couldn't, so I have no idea what goes on with that. But the Ryzen Live thing is available, as far as I know, to everybody, because they had the Landmark 3 show over this year, and I was able to watch that no problem. So
it's going to be available internationally. It's just not going to have English commentary.
Oh yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I think it still needs to be pointed out. I think the amount of people who care about English commentary, if you're staying up to watch the MMA, you really don't care about English commentary. I think I don't think that one needs the other, because if you like Japanese MMA, you're watching it for the MMA. I'm sure there's probably some people out there that that need English commentary, but
yeah, if people are going to watch the event, they're going to watch the event, but it always helps. It's a cherry on top to have English commentary there. And, I think we lack in that. I mean, I think we need better commentators. In order to get better commentators, you need more money for that. So, it's kind of one of those things where, we're going to have to figure that out. But, even with this option of streaming, I mean, to have a better streaming partner. I mean, Fight was doing a great job of having a nice Fight stream for us in the United States. They advertise out here in the United States. Oh, we're going to have Ryzen on Fight TV, so people will go and watch via there. I think that if it was done on a bigger platform, it'd be great. I mean, I miss having those events on Access TV. That was probably one of the bigger events they've had on Access TV, where they can do it overnight and all that as well. I miss those days where we could watch Japanese MMA in there. Plus, considering how successful New Japan Pro Wrestling is right now on Access TV, it would be nice for maybe Ryzen to consider maybe going back to Access TV now and kind of tying their wagon to Access TV. But we'll see.
See, Ryzen seemingly wants to almost have 100% control over any sort of distribution. They don't, and that's that was one of the reasons I heard why they left Fight, because apparently Fight owns the English portion of the show, or the commentary at least. So it seems like Ryzen kind of wants to be 100% in control of whatever they want to do. And actually, Bob Lou Jack is chiming in. He says, I would say you need to do English commentary. Hardcore fans are fine with it, because we are fine with doing research on the fighters, not the average fan though. But then I would argue that probably the average fan maybe isn't tuning into Ryzen regularly unless it's a big card, or if it's like a New Year's Eve show. That's my belief. The hardcore, we're staying up at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. or 10 p.m. if you're on the West Coast. But I guess, do we use the term casual fan anymore? Is that still used? Casual fan?
I don't think there's a lot of casual fans watching Rising at 1 a.m.
No, I don't think so. I think they're not tuning in regardless. They might, if they see, Bob Sapp versus whoever, they'll watch it out of irony. But then it's like they're not gonna watch Ren Hiramoto versus Suzuki or something. I honestly don't believe that. I mean, does anybody disagree or agree?
I think
CJ?
Rising, just go on what you're saying. I don't think Rising's that interested in the international market at this moment. They just lost the Fuji TV deal. I think they're 100% focused on their domestic broadcasting and trying to get back on a big Japanese provider. And anything international that's later.
Which is so funny because
yeah,
they were doing they were like following like almost perfect steps to try to like gain international notoriety, and now it's like they don't give a fuck. They've gone like backwards seemingly in their approach, which is very it doesn't seem, it's so funny because like, okay, so like the USA is so different. We're like, so many movie companies, film TV companies are like desperate to like get international box office gross, whatever, especially in China. Like companies like Disney and others are obsessed with it. But then you have a company like Ryzen, which at one point seemingly wanted to do international stuff, and now seemingly is like, oh no, we don't care about that anymore. Meanwhile, there are people who are saying that they do want to. It's just an interesting.
I would say the pandemic had a lot to do with that too. I mean, obviously it stymied a lot of the growth that it was going towards at that point. So they kind of had to take a step back, and I mean, obviously they took a little bit of losses during the pandemic. So I kind of understand that situation where they want to kind of slow their growth a little bit, just so they can make up a little bit of money for that. And maybe, and
okay.
CJ's probably right.
I get it. But here's the thing though. Why does Ryzen still promote, like they still do those like tail the tapes on their English Twitter? Then why bother? It's like, it's kind of like, it's
paid good money for that parody account. They paid good money for that parody account.
That's true. I guess so. I guess that's true. Yeah.
So the comment I want to make is that I don't think Rising's ever been interested in international. I think anything international was done to promote within Japan to show how big they are. To be like, look, we're such a big, awesome company. We're broadcast in this many countries, or we have deals with KSW and Invicta FC. We're this giant Japanese MMA company. But that was all for the Japanese fans. Kind of like back in Pride, when Pride did shows in the US, that was less about global expansion and more about being like, look at how big we are. We just did a show in another country to the Japanese fan base.
Chris, I want to get.
Well, I agree with TJ in the fact that it wants to stay based in Japan. I mean, not do shows over here in the United States or whatever. I mean, obviously they have the deal with Bellator right now where they're kind of doing some cross promotion where they're having fights over in Japan and having some of their fighters over fighting for Bellator. Yeah, I kind of understand that kind of mentality, but you still, I mean, in terms of streaming, I think we'll ultimately get to that point where we'll get some international broadcasts a lot more easier from now on. I mean, it's stupid not to do that. I understand that they're Japanese based and they're going to stay Japanese based, but I'm still interested in them getting their name out to some of these other countries, so there'll be a bigger fan base for us to watch pay-per-views or whatever. So we'll see.
Chris, just quickly.
I'm like a battered spouse at this point in time, so I'll believe the international stream when I see it.
Chris, I just want to just quickly give me some succinct thoughts on this whole topic.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I guess when it comes down to international fans, international streaming, I mean, I probably want that just to get a clear perspective of the product. It's just the fact that when it comes down to, the stream, I'll watch it however, but it just sucks that for now, Ryzen can't provide fans internationally with, not just streams to the point where we can actually see them, we can actually understand them, but to the point where it can make the casual fan happy. And especially considering the fact that they got a fight with Floyd Mayweather coming up, you definitely want to have that international streaming access. It's just the fact that if you don't get an international stream working, you're just not gonna be able to reach that fan unless it's a fucking meme. I mean, unless it's in a fucking meme or chiseled down as highlight video.
We have an interesting comment from WMMA Scene Now, one of your colleagues, Mark. He says, a lot of international fans seem to lose interest without international fighters. They claim to love JMMA as long as JMMA means a lot of international fighters. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. Does anybody agree or disagree with that? CJ?
I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I will say I've noticed that people seem to freak out when the foreign fighters are back, especially with Ryzen. They're like, oh, it's like old Ryzen. The foreign fighters are back. So I think there is a hint of truth in what he's saying, that people have more interest in Japanese fighters versus foreign fighters, as opposed to like your local Deep and Pancrase shows where it's just Japanese versus Japanese.
Okay. Mark?
Japanese fighters used to be, I mean, especially the females, used to be very, very dominant. I mean, I think that we've kind of turned a corner where we're starting to see a lot more international fighters from other countries starting to make that way into there as well. But I'm interested to see what kind of happens with some of the Japanese fighters that are in the UFC right now and see how they kind of work through. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, you know, in the future years where everything goes. I've said this a million times, is that once we get some of these Japanese female wrestlers into amateur wrestlers into MMA, I think we're going to see kind of a second surge of very popular female MMA fighters because they're going to be so damn good in the fight. So we've already kind of seen that already. So I think it's just going to take a little time for the turn pretty much of kind of the old school Japanese style fighters versus what'll be the future.
And Chris, quickly, just what do you think about that comment by WMMA Scene Now?
Well, again, I agree. A lot of fans don't really take much interest in Ryzen unless they have international fighters. I just feel that when it comes down to international commentary, especially considering that they have a Floyd Mayweather fight coming up, be it exhibition or otherwise, they have to have that international lining, that, you know, they have to have English commentary or, you know, international commentary at the very least, because who's going to want to watch a fight when they can't really understand half of what the fuck is going on?
Plus with Mayweather, I mean, he costs a lot. And in order for them to make up that cost, they have to have international streaming. There's just no way that they're not going to need that. So yeah.
Also question, why would you have a press conference in Las Vegas if you don't plan to actually, like, it would just make no sense logically. You know, it just doesn't seem to be 1 + 1 = 2.
I'm going to cut you off there. I think that press conference was aimed towards Japanese audiences. And I think it was, look at how important and big we are. We're having a press conference in Las Vegas.
Oh, well, actually, it wasn't just aimed towards the Japanese audience. Obviously, when you have Floyd Mayweather, as they say, the hood will come. I mean, you ain't got to like it, but the hood gonna love it.
I mean, all the questions the U.S. media asked him were like, do you think Las Vegas is going to have a basketball team? Like, they didn't ask a single Ryzen question. So yeah,
obviously there is that point where, you know, damn well the American media ain't gonna give a damn about it, but still though, the interest should be there more often, you know, especially when it comes down to getting some of these big international signings.
Jay Chris is really asking
about that press conference.
Jay Chris is really asking is Joe Warren available to do commentary?
Good question. Good point.
Joe Warren.
Okay.
Seriously, fuck Joe Warren.
Sorry to interrupt, Chris, but we gotta move on. I want to move on to the fight that I think is the least interesting and the one that I give the least shit about. And that is Siwoo Park versus Kanazakura.
Oh, please.
What's with all the hate? What's with all the hate?
Andrew, you saying you don't give a shit about the fight?
Out of the four, out of all the matches, that's the one I don't care about. Like, it's the one I least care about.
Oh my God, Andrew. Let's just go ahead and get right down to it. Siwoo Park basically dominated, I think, Reina on New Year's Eve.
That was not a domination.
That was a controversial decision at best. Come on, man.
No, that was not a domination. It was a split decision. Was it? No, it was It was a unjustly awarded unanimous decision, I believe.
Point of the matter is, Siwoo Park is trying to look to make her name in the promotion, and who better to make her name against than the recent, and by recent meaning only, Super Atomweight Grand Prix champion in Kanazakura. I mean, come on. You say you don't give a shit.
So here,
but it's the one and only Atomweight Grand Prix champion.
I'll explain. So I like Kanazakura before, like, if anybody who's a pro wrestling fan will be like her losing her smile downturn. Remember when she was losing to, when she lost to Miyu, and then she had the close decision loss to Ayaka, the first loss to Ayaka as well. And she has not, other than the Furuse fight, but that's because Mizuki Furuse is not that good. That she has not looked as great as she did, I guess, before the finals of the Atomweight Grand Prix, the first one. And I think stylistically against Siwoo Park, I don't think it's going to be I think it's going to be a very slow, meandering fight, because Siwoo Park's going to be like, okay, what do I gotta do to not lose against Kana? Oh, to let her take me down, because it's quite obvious that Kana will not win standing up, and she'd be a fool to even try that. And yeah, I think this is going to be a case where the styles do not mesh, and we're kind of going to have a very meandering fight. CJ, what do you think?
So I think that they're both very talented, but also very flawed fighters. They both are very good at one thing, but have some pretty big holes in their game. But I agree with you generally that the problem is that Siwoo Park is a very strong fighter, a very athletically gifted fighter, and she's very difficult to take down. And Kana Asakura doesn't have the highest wrestling pedigree, but she is very much a grappler. And if Seika Izawa and Hikaru Aono have a hard time getting Park down, I think Kana Asakura is going to have an impossible time getting her down, especially now that Park trained with Miyu Yamamoto for 2 years and really helped shelled up her grappling defense. But also, it's worth noting Park is back in Korea now, training back at Team Mad with Ham Sohee again. So I think Park's going to look great. The big issue going into this fight, though, is that they train together.
She mentioned that during the press conference. She was like, I forgot the exact details, but she did mention that during the press conference. Sorry, CJ, go ahead.
Yeah, they trained together for this Otomi Takano fight, so they kind of know about each other. And I think Kana Asakura actually is acting kind of scared. I think she's intimidated by Park, and I think Park is going to beat her. The only time that Park's lost in recent memory is when she almost knocked out Saudi Oshima, and Saudi Oshima caught her in an armbar. And Kana Asakura has not thrown up armbars from her back, so I don't see how she wins this fight.
You mean Kana, right?
Yeah, so I think we're going to get an upset. I think all the Japanese fans think Kana Asakura is going to win, but I'm pretty sure that Park's going to win.
Mark, how about you?
It's kind of close. I think. I mean, it just depends on what kind of mindset Kana is coming in with. I mean, she hasn't had the most exciting fights as of late. I don't know if she's still dating one of the brothers over there. I remember that used to be a storyline back in the day.
No, she was dating Tenshin Nasukawa and # Team Kana in this household. Yeah,
because there was some big huge thing about how Reina was the NWO because she was the odd woman out, as it were. But Kana, I think is kind of in a spot during a spot in her career where she's going to be a little bit more. She's in a difficult spot. She needs to kind of refocus and kind of get kind of charged through as well. Park, I think she's come up on the scene. She's done her homework, as it were. So it's a close fight. It'll all depend on how Asakura, does in terms of, kind of her mindset going in. But coin toss on my end. But I think maybe it's probably, I'll have to agree with CJ and go Park.
Good old Jay Krish.
I mean, y'all basically saying it's going to be an upset. Well, you, CJ. I mean,
I'm saying it's going to be two Japanese fans. It's going to be like an upset. But to me, Park is the favorite going into the fight.
I mean, come to think of it, you're not wrong. But then again, I think you're not right either, because when it comes down to this particular fight, wouldn't you want to see Asakura at least get some type of effort? Because she is coming into this contest and into this Grand Prix in general as the reigning Super Atomweight Grand Prix winner from like 5 years ago.
My issue is that Kana Asakura is an above average wrestler that looks really good against people that can't wrestle. But the problem is, because you saw that in the Miyamoto fight, when she fought a legitimate wrestler, she was not able to take Miyamoto down. But when I saw Siwoo Park fight Seika Izawa could not take and keep Siwoo Park down to save her life. Like, that was a very tough fight. If it was under Rising rules, Siwoo Park would have knocked out Seika Izawa in like the first round. And I think Kana Asakura is going to have a very hard time getting her down. And even if she does, she'll have a very hard time keeping her down.
Good.
Yeah, we actually have a backlog of comments. I'll just read them quickly. Alberto says, just saying, without that investor money, UFC will forever be on top of the Mount Everest of MMA. AEW proved there is a way to disturb the current gamut of a business of promotion dominance. The only thing is that they also have TV, and they have a good TV deal in America. Ryzen will never get that in America. They'll never get anything like that of any sort. I could be wrong, but that's just personally my belief, especially with the way that they're treating international fans at this point. Moby Dick Judge Holden says Park can just headbutt her. That's true. She can. She did it to Reina. How many times did she do it to Reina, CJ? Did she do it like twice?
Remember. She did it a couple times. It's shady. For some reason, all I can think about now is that Siwoo Park dates Seigo Yamamoto. So as long as she doesn't copy her boyfriend and go for like 4 flying knees in a row, I think she'll be fine.
And WMMAC now says Kana hasn't been the same since Tenshin ditched her for the ring girl, for that ring girl. And I know that's kind of funny, but that's also kind of true. It is. Well, I mean, CJ, isn't that kind of like true? Like during that whole thing, like
I think she has one foot out the door. She said she wants to retire when she's around the age of 25. Well, she's 25. And she said at the press conference, she's hoping to get engaged this year. So I think she's near the end of her career.
Is that like a serious retirement, or is this kind of like a Terry Funk thing where they say, I'm going to retire, but like, I don't know. I just, whenever someone says they're going to retire, like at the age of 25, it's just
or a Misha retirement where they
God, yeah,
get married, have a kid, and then come back.
Yes, I Misha retire. Misha retire.
I think this would be more like the Japanese MMA, female MMA scene where you get married, have a kid, and they just disappear from the face of the earth, kind of thing.
Oh, okay, I see. I mean, what do you think would be the more interesting outcome, though? Would it be, and this for you, CJ, will it be if Kana or Park won?
It'd be more interesting to me if Kana won, but I think Park is going to win.
Why Kana? Because we've seen Kana versus Ayaka, we've seen Kana versus Reina. Is it because you want? Is it a possibility of maybe getting a Reina? Not Reina. Kana Izawa fight? Is that what you're?
Kana Izawa fight interests me, and it interests me because it's unexpected. If she beats Park, that means she's made massive improvements, and she's very motivated, which is not what I think she is. So if that happens, that'll be very interesting to me, because I mean, I'm wrong, and she's actually kind of like Ayaka. She has new fire lit under her. She's going to keep going. Whereas I kind of expect Park to win, which is why it's less interesting to me, if that makes any sense.
I think I will. I get what you're saying, but the thing is, I would say is that we've seen Reina and Kana twice, and Kana dominated both times. We've seen Kana and Ayaka, and first time she dominated, in the second it was a much more closer fight. But I still think Ayaka wins in the end.
We've already seen Park fight Izawa. We've already seen Park fight Rena. I mean, it's like the same amount of rematches.
I mean, well, aren't you looking at what potentially Park versus Jag? Does that not interest you?
No, not really.
No. But what about Park versus Fortuna or Anastasia?
I mean, I could do the same thing with Asakura. I could just slap her on all the fighters she hasn't fought either. They've fought the same number of people in the tournament, haven't they?
I believe so. I think so. Yes.
You forgot the Park fought Izawa, and you thought it was uneven.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But I mean, I don't know. I think 2 or 3 years ago, I would be more interested in Izawa Kana. Now, though, I don't feel like that would be Kana's fight to win, especially with the way that she's been, the way her fights have been going now.
I guess you're right. I mean, Park versus Hamasaki would be an interesting fight to see because of the drastic difference in styles.
Those are just new blood. Park has not, listen, you never know what Park, I feel like somebody like Park, I don't know, maybe she'll be a different fighter now that she's back at Team Mad, and she's not with Crazy B anymore, so maybe ahead of Deep Jules' Atomweight tournament, a lot of people were really high on Park, and I'll maintain my assessment that she's a very talented fighter with big holes in her game, and so she's going to win some and she's going to lose some, which is reflected in her record. Oh yeah, absolutely. Mark, I'll pose the same question to you. What do you think is a more interesting outcome if Kana or Park were to win?
Actually, I would be more surprised if this ends up being a finish. I think they're going to go the distance. So
absolutely, yeah. This is going to be. Listen, I will. Like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of hugging. I think 60% of this fight will be spent with both of them, with someone's back toward a turnbuckle. I feel like, or the ropes. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of. I don't think. Short. I think
the Park versus Rena fight spoiled you to Park.
It did, and also Kana as well. See, the problem is that since these two have not really done so much in their latest fights to make me go wow. It's kind of you're pitting two fighters who are now, in my opinion, not as exciting as they can be or used to be, and it's gonna be. I'm going to feel like it's two tentative people who are not going to really take a lot of risks. Jay Chris, do you think that's going to happen this fight? Or am I talking out of my ass?
I mean, you were for quite a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry if I felt a little bit distracted, but what were you talking about again?
What do you think? What do you think will be the more interesting outcome if Kana or Park were to win?
Right. I think the more interesting outlook would be if Kana wins, because of course she's coming into this fight as the reigning Ryzen Women's Super Atomweight Grand Prix tournament winner, even though, of course, there hasn't been a tournament for this division in 5 years, and this promotion's only been around for about 7. But still, though, I do think that even though somebody on this panel says it's going to be a mild upset for Park, I think that this fight is going to probably be one of the favorite fights on the card, if not in the entire tournament, so to speak.
I also think Ryzen kind of wants Kana to win, and I'll be honest, I kind of do like to see plans go awry. Imagine if the finals is Anastasia versus Park somehow. Wouldn't that be funny, like the greatest thing ever?
All I want to see Kana come out to fight Park with Takeru in her corner.
You know what would be even funnier, though? What would be even funnier is if all 4 of the foreign competitors, Spetskiva, Park, Aguilar, and Fontoura, especially Fontoura in the main event, advance out of the Grand Prix. Well, advance out of this first round and just leave all the Japanese fans, picking themselves up off the floor.
Well, I don't think the Japanese fans would mind that. What do you think Ryzen brass is going to be like? They're going to be like, oh, what the fuck do we do? How are we going to, the negotiations with Fuji TV are going to get a little bit more, probably. I would say so, right, CJ?
I mean, if that happened, that'd be crazy. But I think the tournament would just be less talked about. And now in the opening fight of the card, the finals of the women's tournament, I think they would just kind of ignore it a little bit.
Actually, something also interesting I want to bring up as well. And Drake Riggs said that Oshima is an alternate in this. Do you remember?
I don't think that's true.
Okay, because it seems so random have her as a backup. Just because
that might have been what Shingo was saying was like their idea, but Oshima, after her last fight, publicly stated that she's taking 2 months off to support her husband for his tournament because he has a judo tournament in August, I believe. That's very important. If he does well, he might be forced. If he doesn't do well, he might be forced to retire from judo, which would completely change their lives. So she's taking she's not even training. She's taking all the time off to completely support him for his judo career. I mean, people were like contacting her from the judo community, like, he really needs to do well. You need to help him with this. So, and she also, outside of that, her personal issues, she made comments that she doesn't like fighting at super atom weight after fighting Miyu. I mean, she said she thinks there's enough fighters to fight at microweight and she wants to focus on that. She thinks she's too small to get the finishes she likes to in atom weight. Like, she can't get the arm bars. People are muscling out of them. She just feels, she came into the Miyu fight, 47 kilo, 47 point something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, she's way too small for the division. And I think she's starting to realize that.
But she's a trendsetter. She's the one who started the whole up kick revolution. She should realize that.
Well, I mean, she even said, like, Moedi Suda also doesn't cut weight. They both walk around at the same weight. So that's like the problem Japan's always had is you have the fighters that cut weight and the fighters that don't cut weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could probably make another division, put Aya Murakami in them in there, put Mizuki Furuse, your favorite.
So who do you think Ryzen even has an alternate at this point? You think they're just gonna wing it and hope that nobody breaks their hands?
No, there's no alternate. I mean, if somebody gets hurt, they'll solve it last minute.
Like Koji and Taiju.
Or
Megumi Fuji will stand up from the commentator booth.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
I said, or it's a situation where we have visa issues. We can't get them in the country.
Yeah. Megumi Fuji stands up, rips off her commentator outfit, and she's already in full fight regalia. Yes.
Alberto says, I think Naoya Inoue will be the beacon of Japanese businessmen interested in combat sports if he stays atop in the pound for pound list for a long time. So let's hope he has a long, illustrious career. That may be so. We'll also have to see how Tenshin does in boxing.
Boxing is very different from MMA in Japan. So.
Oh yeah. And so I totally forgot what I was about to say. So Chris, you're picking Kano to win?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm gonna be the spoiler and pick Park just because I think it'll be more interesting. Because maybe we'll get, I don't know. That's why I'm not looking forward to this fight because it's just like I don't know. I'm not really it's like
I knew your team Tension all along.
Babu Jack 2. So apparently there's another Babu Jack. Says, nice to know Ryzen have learned from the alternative fast go from Osaka. Correction of a lack of. So God only know. Listen, Deep has all their tournament got fucked up recently, and so who knows what shenanigans will happen in this one. What
if one of the foreigners gets injured and they just like find another like white person and they push them in the ring and try to act like it's the same person? They're just the Japanese fans will never know.
That would be a complete fucking mess, and you know it.
That would be hilarious.
So the fight, I think the fight that I'm really most interested because I don't know what to think about it, is the one that we're going to talk about next, and that is Reina. Reina somehow returning to 108. I thought she was never returned to that weight, but Well, hopefully she won't. She'll make weight. Taking on 2-0, Ryzen debuting, and
I
also
think I can pronounce this name for you, Andrew.
Mm.
Anastasia Spetskipska.
from the Ukraine, and also the youngest person in this tournament, I believe, if I'm correct. I think
No,
she's young.
The Brazilian girl's the youngest, right? She's 21.
Oh, wait, yeah, you're right. You're right. That was it. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just 24.
Yeah, the tallest person. That's what I meant to say. Tallest person in this tournament. She's at 5'7".
Nice save.
Yes, and normally fights at straw weights. CJ. So Japan versus Ukraine. What do you think about this fight?
Man, I think it's great. The girl, I don't know. I mean, I'd be lying if I knew that. Said I knew that much about Anastasia, but she looks like she's clearly got a good striking background. She has that IMAF background, and I think it's great. I mean, we've seen girls from the Ukraine do well in the past, and I'm interested. Plus, I mean, it kind of I always loved it, like back in the 2017 tournament, where they would just have foreign fighters. They always picked one from a bunch of different countries, and so I like saying it gives these fighters a chance to really shine on a big stage. I mean, if Anastasia does really well, she might get some big fight offers off of this.
Remember when Ryzen was on their big Mongolia kick? And they're like,
oh,
you obviously, of all people, Andrew, remember that so well that they bought that horrible Mongolian heavyweight.
Wasn't that more just because they were trying to link themselves with Asa Shodu?
That's true.
The sumo champion.
Yes.
Who publicly made the guy apologize afterwards. Yeah, he apologized for the Mongolian guy's performance.
Moby Dick Judd Holden says the IMMAF is rather inconsistent in terms of talent. Anastasia won the gold in the amateurs, I believe, but that might not mean much. I guess.
I mean, come to think of it, when it comes to Anastasia being a former IMMAF gold medal winner, I mean, that does mean something. I mean, it means she's well decorated. But yes, you're right, it doesn't mean much, because look at Shinobu Ota, 2016 Olympic silver medal wrestler.
And
when Jessamine Duke was the Muay Thai champion of Kentucky.
It's like being the best ice skater in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that they match these two up because they seemingly both are strikers for the most part, CJ?
Yeah, I think they wanted to put two strikers together to make a fun matchup.
Mark, what do you think about these two, the clash of Japan versus Ukraine?
Well, first of all, shout out to Elena Korosnik, who's going to be fighting for the PFL in London in the semifinals. I got to meet her here in Vegas. She's training with Serena De Jesus over at Extreme Couture. So, fellow Ukrainian. So, best of luck to her. I think with the IMAF, I mean, I follow probably them more than anybody probably on this panel. First of all, fighting three times in a week, that's not easy. I mean, they sometimes have to fight twice in one day. Gotta give Anastasia credit on that. As in terms of inconsistency, it's just that it depends on where, it depends on the tournament. If it's a certain tournament where people cannot get out there or whatever, then maybe they'll have maybe one or two matches. If it's like the World Championships, obviously they'll have a lot more competition in terms of it as well. Although it's kind of weird that they have it in one of the Arabian countries. I don't know why that ends up being the case. I mean, if it was in London or United States, it might be a little bit something different. But I mean, experience is still experience in terms of the cage. I mean, it's not like in amateurs, you're just trying to figure yourself out. What works, what doesn't work, and all that as well. So saying that 7-1 as an amateur, it's very rare for anybody, even here in the United States, to say that they're 7-1 as an amateur and not have already gone pro already. So there is a little bit of experience in terms of her going in there. So that kind of gets kind of that out of the way, that she's only 2-0 versus a more experienced and professional MMA artist in Reina. That being said, though, Reina does have a lot more striking in her as well. So This will be the interesting striking match of the tournament. Obviously, Reina's got a lot more. It'll depend on if Anastasia decides to take it to the mat. But again, if it stands on the feet, I think Reina has it. But I think it's closer than a lot of people expect.
Chris, what do you think about this juicy matchup?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I can't really say much about Anastasia other than what's already been said by some of the people on this panel. I mean, especially when you consider the fact that she is a decorated amateur competitor, even though we've seen amateur competitors jump into the Ryzen ring before. I mean, who can remember back in like 2017, Dylan the Legend West got his ass kicked by Kizaemon Saiga. But still, though, when it comes down to the amateur game, you got to really prove. I mean, when you make that jump from amateur to pro, and even though you have 2 fights under your belt, you still got to prove that you're worth something. And I think that if Anastasia shows enough of an effort in this fight against Reina Kubota, she's going to definitely prove that she's worth something.
CJ, so we talked about retirements. Reina seemingly like there was a joke at one point that she was going to retire after every fight. I feel like, I mean, what do you think that she's going to retire if she loses? Like if you lost to Anastasia?
I don't know. I think she's been talking less about the idea of. I think she's motivated again. I think she hasn't been talking about retirement as much. She's made it very publicly clear that she wants to fight for Bellator again. And I think she wants to fight on the international stage. And so she sees this tournament as a good chance to get the wins she needs to get back in Bellator. And I think training and mixing up her training with Brave as well has also kind of remotivated her. Mm-hmm. And I don't think she's talking that much about retirement. I think she's motivated. And I think training at Brave has also done a lot of help with her wrestling as well. So it should be interesting to see what happens. But no, she seems motivated.
I guess the other question I'll ask you is, I know that on paper she lost to Park, but do you think that that they put her still in because she's Reina, regardless of the loss?
Mm-hmm. She's a superstar. I mean, they were going to do an All Japan tournament, and she didn't want to take part in it, so they changed it to Japan versus foreign. I mean, I don't know if they did that because of her, but
she seemed to imply that it was. I know. I read those comments that she said, and I think I feel she seemed to imply that she didn't want to be a part of it unless it was
foreign.
She was foreign. Either that it had foreign fighters, that she was taking on a foreign fighter. I really couldn't.
Yeah. She didn't want All Japan because then it'd be too many of her own teammates, and she didn't want to fight them. But I mean, it just kind of reminds me of when they called Michael Jordan to be on the Dream Team, and he was like, "Well, call me back when you figure out who else is going to be on this." So
Mark, so out of all the fights, would you say that, I don't want to say that the ideal, but do you think could you get behind a Ayaka Reina final if it comes to that?
I mean, with Reina, it would be kind of almost like a redemption story. She would be able to, she has, again, just like Kana, she's had some stumbles in terms of her career, and this would be, this would be almost a redemption for her to know that she's gotten to the finals versus probably one of the greatest atomweights of all time behind Megumi Fujii. But I would see behind it. I mean, I don't think she'd win it, but I would get behind it.
I'm more interested in her comments towards Seika Izawa, where she said that she thinks she's the only person in the tournament with the skills to beat her.
Okay, so let's get down to that. Chris, I'll start with you. Who do you think wins between Reina and Anastasia?
I mean,
I know it's hard to pick, based on what we don't know about Anastasia. We know what Reina does, but we don't know what Anastasia does. But I guess based on what we know about her, what can you make from that pick if you have one?
I mean, to be honest, I would say, that Reina is gonna win. for obvious reasons. I mean, she's probably the favorite going into this fight, but who gives a fuck about the Vegas odds makers, right? But still, though, I would say Reina is gonna win, and I think that Reina is gonna win. But this is the fight that I would probably look forward to if an upset were to occur, because I think that even though Anastasia Spetskivska is coming into this fight as the underdog, 2-0, compared to what 9-4 for Reina.
And don't forget all that shoot boxing, all those shoot boxing fights as well.
Oh yeah, of course. But even though Kubota is coming into this fight as the favorite, I wouldn't mind seeing Anastasia win this fight as an underdog, especially given all the shit that Ukraine is going through right now, being bombarded by a bunch of Russian assholes.
CJ, I feel like you're going to be biased in your pick, but I'll still ask it. Who do you pick to win this?
It's got to be Rena. She's never going to lose.
Well, CJ, what you gotta do is you gotta like record yourself watching this fight, because if Reina loses, I would put good money just to want to see the reaction on your face if it happens, if it's like a knockout or something.
It'd be like Bellator all over again. The dark days.
I mean, like, so do you foresee Reina domination in this fight? Like, do you think we're going to see the Reina that we saw in the first Grand Prix? That's
what I want. But do only hope.
Do you think we will see that?
Wicked body punches?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Do you think we're going to get body punch Reina, or we're going to get grappling heavy against Samantha John Francois and Siwoo Park Reina?
I think we're going to get aggressive striker Reina, because, I mean, she hasn't been able to do it because, I mean, she fought Miyu, who you really can't do that against. And then she fought Siwoo Park, who seemed obsessed with clinching with her.
Mm-hmm. Well, she was able to do it with Miyu when Miyu was able to go for a takedown, because that's the one opportunity she would have to actually like do it.
That was an amazing knockout. That was a great fight. And I think we're going to see aggressive Reina. I mean, she puts so much pressure on herself to be exciting, to help raise the interest in women's MMA. Mm-hmm. I mean, you saw it in the Park fight. She never quit. She was always going after her, even when there's like weird stuff going on. So I think we're going to see a very aggressive Reina going for the knockout.
Let's base how on French bulldogs. How many French bulldogs the number of French bulldogs would you say that you would gladly say in lieu of stars? Are you looking forward to this fight? Is this the one you're looking forward to the most?
No, I'm looking forward to Hamasaki Aguilar the most, but in this
fight, gotcha.
I am looking forward to it because of the whole unknown factor. It's one of the things I like about tournaments. When they bring someone in that you don't know about, it kind of creates like this whole mystery blind date situation. You don't know what you're going to get. So that's always exciting to me as well.
Mark, so what do you think? How this fight goes?
I will say for Anastasia that, like I said, she has a striking in there. I mean, the good news for her is that she's got length on her. I mean, she's the tallest competitor in there. I'm pretty sure she's going to have the reach advantage. She'll have the kicking reach advantage as well. The bad news is that she's going into a ring, which I don't know. Again, it's something that I think a lot of people don't understand how hard and difficult that is. How different an environment it is versus a cage. Reina, I mean, Reina's going to be Reina. She's done a lot to improve her game. Being a taller competitor might be an advantage to Reina if she does want to get to takedown as well. Tough, again, close fight. I think it's closer than everybody thinks it is. But I would have to say Reina on this one. Again, it's kind of a coin toss, but I'm going to go Reina on it.
Well, so as somebody who does pay attention to IMMA app, have you seen Anastasia fight in her two fights or in her amateurs?
I have not. I glanced at her a little bit about what she's done in there. I mean, she's got the striking potential. She does have a little bit of ground on there as well. So again, when you're an amateur, you're a lot different fighter than when you're a professional. Her last two fights, though was a ground and pound affair, and she ended up winning by kick last time. So she does have. It seems like she has more of a striking game than she does a ground game. So it'll be interesting to see if it ends up standing up on the feet.
I actually want to say about that the height as well. CJ, I in a lot of her shoot boxing fights, I feel like were her opponents taller than her? Because I know she's about like 5'2", 5'3", right?
She fought a lot of taller people in shoot boxing. She's had a history of doing striking battles with taller people. I believe Takahashi was taller than her. And then she fought these tall, like super blonde girl, forget where she was from. But yeah, she fought taller women in shoot boxing.
Do you think that Anastasia's size can be the one advantage she'll have in this fight against Reina?
I mean, it's hard to predict because Reina doesn't like to strike from range. She likes to strike from very close. So I don't think that if the girl's able to keep Reina off of her, it could play a factor. But if Reina's able to get close, it could actually work against her.
For shits and giggles, I would love to see Anastasia win only because it might just cause the kickboxing or like shoot boxing fans to like have a meltdown that she lost to a 2-0 girl from IMMAF.
Who hurt you? Where does all this spite coming from?
It's more. It's stuff that. Well, here. The one flip side is that if Reina wins and Hamazaki wins, that gives us a fight closer. That gets us closer to them potentially fighting. And I'm assuming that you would want to see that. Is that your ideal final?
No, I want to. That's the fight that I'd be interested for Reina is Reina versus Izawa.
Okay. Not an Reina versus Hamazaki. I feel like that'd
be interesting, but I'm more interested in seeing how Izawa deals with a very good striker.
Moby Dick Judge Holden says, how depressing would it be if Aguiar beat Hamazaki, Seika, and one of the tournaments? I don't think that'd be depressing. I don't think that'd be depressing. That'd be kind of
yeah.
Can we all agree that would be like a feel-good story?
That would be a comeback for Jag.
Then she could retire. Then she could retire.
No, I think she has one more match after that. I mean, she has the Fuji match and then calls it a career.
Well, she did win the tournament. She then would have to face Izawa. That's what would only be fair, right? I think so. And then she could retire after she beats Izawa and goes and is undefeated against every Japanese fighter she's ever fought. I know this is good. This is definitely.
I mean, obviously, in a way, if Aguilar were to, beat Hamasaki, beat Seika, and then win the tournament outright, it would be a great memento for her career because it would basically give her, the recognition of being one of the greatest fighters of all time, even though a lot of people would basically have their, misconceptions, so to speak.
And then she can she can have a career rejuvenation after the age of 40. When many MMA fighters tend to, Glover became champion after the age of 40. So hey.
Yeah, but before he got his ass handed to him by Yuri Prohaska.
He didn't get his ass handed. It was very, both were so close to finishing each other at like multiple points. And we need to see that rematch.
Insert Poirier joke.
Yes. Insert Poirier joke. But I guess it's now the main event officially. At least according to the poster.
The Seika Izawa fight is the main event. Yes.
Oh, that's that. Good. That's interesting that they're kind of just ending with the main card being all matches. But
she's the only champion on the card. She's the only champion on the card.
Yeah, champ versus champ.
Well, actually, no. She's not the only champion on the card. Her opponent is also a champion as well. The Palace Athena's Women's Fighting Championship strawweight belt holder.
Yeah, and but what's interesting is that it's champion versus champion. Kind of like when remember when Ryzen did Tsunabe versus Ochi, Pancreas versus Deep Champion.
Yeah.
Or
really cool. Takeda versus Kume. They did a couple times.
Oh yeah, no, I like shit like this. I like shit like this. But and also they're, I guess you could say, as Mike Goldberg would say, virtually identical, both undefeated, very close records. 6-0 Izawa, 7-0 Fortuna. And it's This is a stylistically, I'm really curious about this fight, and I'll put it over to you, CJ. What do you think about this fight?
Interested in it because we haven't seen Seika fight a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter yet. And so she's fought Miki Matono twice, Hamasaki twice. I mean, 4 of her 6 fights are against judo fighters. So it'll be interesting to see her against someone with a jiu-jitsu background.
Did she fight Hikaru Ono?
No, she did not.
Oh, okay. I thought she did.
But Ono has a wrestling background, but no, she fought. Oh my God, let's see if I can remember this. She fought Arami. She fought Matono twice. She fought Hamasaki twice.
Speaking of Arami, that Kate Lewis fight was such horseshit. That was what a boring, what a horrible fight that was.
Deep 108 had some disappointing fights on it, but the main event was all right. And so she has only fought. I mean, the closest was I think she fought Sakura in a grappling match or something. But
those don't count. Those are non-canon.
So she's never fought a jiu-jitsu fighter in an MMA fight. So I'm very interested in this because the other person she fought was Park, so it was a striker, not a jiu-jitsu fighter. So yeah, very interested because Fraterna's got a bunch of armbar victories and will present some new problems for Izawa. So it'll be interesting to see how much she's advanced. I mean, she's only been fighting for close to 2 years, so. And a good test for him.
Fontoura has a win over one of my favorites, Andy Nguyen. If you remember her from the old Ryzen, very, very old Ryzen fight TV days. Would you call
2
it
fights with Miyamoto, didn't she?
Yeah, and she had the one that was basically was right after Kid died.
And then she had the Reina fight.
Yeah, first the Reina fight. Was it I think she was first the Reina fight. No, it was first Miyu, then Reina, then Miyu again, I believe.
Okay.
Would you call it an upset if Fontoura beat Izawa?
Yes. From the Japanese point of view.
Okay, gotcha. Mark, what do you think about this fight?
My God, I mean, to have 2 undefeated fighters on the, at the main event, I think it's really great. I mean, this is going to be, I think it's going to be Izawa's toughest test to date, I think. And this is versus a very, Brazil always has strong female fighters. So it's going to be a very tough challenge for her to get through it. I mean, here we go with Fontana being, a heavy jiu-jitsu fighter, pretty much an armbar queen, pretty much. So it'll be a tough test. I think a lot of people were saying, Izawa's, it seemed like everybody on this panel has been saying Izawa's going to make it, through the next round. But this one, I don't see that happening. I think that, to have a tough Brazilian come into this tournament, and have finished so many of her opponents, I think that, I'm going to go against the grain and already tell you that Fontana is going to probably win the main event.
Just so everybody knows, she trains at Team Constrictor, and here are some of her training partners. Francisco Trinaldo, Rani Yaha, Renato Moicano, just to name a few. So she trains with some very, very good Brazilian gentlemen. So Chris, I don't want you to spoil the interview that you did with Fontoura, but you talked to her today, and I'm curious to know, you probably have a better perspective on what she thinks she can bring to this fight to win. So yeah, how do you think this fight goes?
Without giving any details about the interview that I will be posting for a very, very near future edition of Focus Fights Audio, by the way, when it does come out, check your favorite podcast provider of choice. I'm pretty sure it'll be there, but still, point of the matter is, without spoiling the interview, Laura Fontoura is very excited to compete not only on this card, but to compete against a fellow unbeaten in Izawa. And when it comes down to this fight, she just hopes to put her best foot forward and, try and dominate Izawa. And if not, she'll go back to defending her title in Palace Athenas, even though when she fought in Palace Athenas against Andy Nguyen, she didn't know what to expect because she was basically neck and neck with her for like the first 3 rounds until she basically found the sweet spot in the fourth and submitted Nguyen. But I mean, even though she did complain in the interview that it was really cold up in Calgary that night, and she couldn't really understand how it was so cold, but still, point of the matter is she just hopes to, dominate this fight and hope to at least survive in advance.
Well, it'll be plenty warm for her over here in Japan.
No, yeah, no shit.
Andrew, you're muted.
CJ, so you're thinking Izawa will win this?
Yeah, I do.
And Mark, I'm gonna go
Said with very little confidence.
Mark, so you think Fontoura is gonna get the upset win? Do you think she'll be the first person to not only beat her but potentially even finish Izawa?
Yeah, I think she will be. It's a bold prediction, but just coming off of her training and being undefeated and having so many submission wins under there. I mean, it's just going to be tough for her to not to win. But I'm sticking with my prediction. Yeah, I think it's going to be an upset.
And Chris, obviously you have more insight into Fontoura. I want to hear your pick.
I mean, I'm not gonna basically, tread lightly on this. I want to see Izawa. I mean, I want to see Izawa win, but I'm really neutral on this because I think with two undefeated fighters, as the old saying goes, somebody's gotta go. I'm just looking forward to an exciting fight regardless because you got two unbeaten fighters. You got two fighters looking to pretty much put their best foot forward, kick each other's ass while basically popping the crowd. I'm looking forward to a fun fight and, I would say may the best woman win, but in this case, I think whoever wins this fight has a better shot at winning the Super Atomweight Grand Prix than any of the other 6 females assembled for this tournament.
Here's the other thing I'll pose. Undefeated is I don't know, is a relative term in MMA. I mean, if you look at the people,
it's only worth who you fought.
Exactly. So let me just also bring some context. Fontoura, here's all the opponents she's fought and their records when she fought: 0-1, 0-0, 1-0, 3-0, 0-0, 6-7, and 6-9. Ironically, that was with Andy Nguyen. And now
I'm sure she would appreciate that number.
Oh yes. And then with Izawa, 5-3, 5-1, 5-2, 5-3, 23-3, and 23-4. So, does that? What do you think about that when you hear that, CJ? Does that tell you that Izawa's faced better competition than Fontoura coming into this fight?
It's different. I mean, Izawa's record is weird because she's fought 6 fights, but 4 of them are against the same people. I mean, 4 of them are rematches. So I think Izawa has fought better people, but I think Fontoura has fought a bigger variety of people. So maybe she's gotten more looks and fought people with different skill sets, whereas Izawa's pretty much fought a bunch of judo fighters.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, what do you think about that when you hear those disparate records and the fighters who they fought?
I have to agree. I mean, it's this variety of fighters in terms of what they've gotten, and the matchmakers were a lot. Those early fights, obviously, they're going to be 0-0, 1-0, 3-0 fighters, just because they're starting out as a professional fighter. But I think a lot of different lurks and all that as well, and different training styles too, and the way everything kind of goes. So. I know I'm still even though you brought that up, I'm still going Fontoura in terms of that as well. So we'll kind of see what happens there, and I'm interested to see. I mean, after this, I mean, I should also mention, I think that obviously she's going down to 108. Same thing with Jag. I don't know if Jag's ever made 108 either. So I'm interested to see how the weight cut goes in terms of both of them.
That's true. That's true. Actually, CJ, they don't have to do any more isolation like Tofik had to do, right?
I don't think so.
Okay,
But
good.
I didn't know that Corona numbers are on the rise in Tokyo, so it might change again. But,
Oh, oh God, yeah.
I think I heard Jessica Aguilar has been working as a personal trainer, so maybe she's cut down some weight, and maybe it'll be easier for her.
Gotcha. So
That
Chris,
and the fact that she's also done interview work for, I think, XFC MMA, but they're going through their own issues right now.
Moby Dick Judge Holden says, what if all the foreigners won? CJ, what happens if all the foreigners win?
All the foreigners win. Tournament goes on.
Do you think it's more interesting if they all win,
No.
or do you don't think so?
That makes it drastically much more boring to me.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
are you kidding me, CJ? I mean, I think
If all of the foreigners win, yes. No, if a couple of them win, it's interesting. If all of them win, it's just weird.
Well, it's gonna be weird because there's gonna be no international broadcast for the shit.
Well, there may not even been anyway. Who knows?
Yeah, sure.
It's Ryzen after all. You never know.
Anastasia is
In
worried
fact,
about it being broadcast in the Ukraine. So, yeah.
And my understanding is that actually Anastasia, she actually trains in Warsaw, I believe, as of now. I think it's a little bit hard to train in Ukraine as currently.
Makes sense.
In fact, I would be more inclined to believe that if all the foreigners won, Ryzen would do their best to geoblock the show of the all future shows forever. So who knows?
Well, here's my thing. If all the foreigners win, maybe Bellator will have it on their show.
Well, it's just like thinking, like, it's getting flashes of that scene in Gladiator where he stabs the guy right before his fight to like handicap him. Like Aguiar comes out to all the foreign fighters and like poisons them before the fights or something.
Oh, a Tanya Hardy situation where they clap in the knee.
That's funny.
Exactly.
Takero Man, he's got a few questions. I'll start up. Takero Man 91 asks, anyone watching Bellator right now? I have the prelims on my TV right now. Anybody else watching Bellator in the panel?
Not at the moment. I know there was one female fight on there, but I'll have to take a look and see what's going on with that one.
CJ, you're probably not watching it, right? I don't think.
No, not watching it, no.
Chris, you're probably watching basketball or something, right?
I'm actually, while I will be watching the basketball tournament right about now, which is basically like the US Open Cup, if you follow soccer, but for basketball players still trying to look for a second chance, I'm actually keeping one eye on y'all and the other on SmackDown right now.
Gotcha. He also asked,
a lot of stuff's going down, right?
We've heard a lot of stuff.
Oh shit.
He also asked, has anyone seen Nope yet? And the answer is nope.
I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. What is Nope?
It's a brand new Jordan Peele movie.
If it's a brand new movie, it'll be in Japan in like 5 years. So
okay. he recommends we all watch it. And he also asks, are the rumors that Ryzen is in serious financial trouble true or just hyperbole? CJ, do you know anything about that? Have you heard anything about that? I have not heard anything about that.
I don't think losing the Fuji TV deal wasn't like necessarily a financial loss directly. It's more of a loss of like potential sponsor income in the future and attracting fighters with the promise of them being watched by millions of fans in Japan.
And I think the
results are less financial and more reputation.
Yeah, but I also think what that does is as well is, so you got the big name fighters like Mikuru Kai, the ones who have big followings. What's their incentive to fight, on a streaming service when, they, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Is Mayweather a investor in Ryzen now with the deal?
I'm sorry?
What's the deal with Mayweather? Is he a part of the company? Does he own part of it now, or?
I don't.
No, he doesn't.
No, I hope not. I hope there's not. I mean, here's the Ryzen.
What's the rumor? They paid him like $2 million for that press conference.
And if Sakakibara said that's not true, I don't know.
Paid 1.8.
I have no idea what to believe.
But either way, if you're paying Mayweather, then it means that you have money. So I don't think there's any problems.
Yeah, and also Ryzen has sponsors. A lot of people forget that. Like, it's whenever people like say, "Oh, Bellator has no money," I got the screen right on, and I see sponsors all over the ring. Like Like
I mean,
monster.
obviously, you see a big ass Monster Energy logo in the center of that ring.
The only thing that Ryzen needs, though, if they want to survive in the future, is they need a Tenga sponsorship. That's what they need.
Tenga sponsored Brave Gym. You see all those Brave guys posing with pictures.
Why don't they sponsor Takaro? They should sponsor him. He's the one with the point collection.
He's holding out for the Magic Mirror sponsorship.
What are you trying? Nah. He probably gonna get a Faku FAKKU sponsorship.
Babu Jack.
Personally, I love the beanbag sponsorship that they have. I wish
they Yogi Ball in
the United States.
Yeah, even though because of that beanbag sponsorship, they forced Yogi Ball to move from New Hampshire all the way out to Tokyo.
I always thought it was funny whenever
Yogi Ball sponsors like an F1 team now, don't they, or like a racing team?
I thought it was hilarious that they would put they would struggle to get that giant B bag in, and you have like the fighters all woozy, and they're like trying to like struggle to like just like even like sit like comfortably on it. In the back as well, you see just like they'd be like have their arm wrapped up. You know, they would have like a bandage on their head, like Willie Coyote, and they're like sitting on a green beanbag chair. It's just it's a really fucking funny image.
I loved it. It was incredibly JMMA, and I loved it.
Oh yeah. Speaking of JMMA, Babu Jack II says, bit of a shame that we would all lose interest if all the foreigners won. That wouldn't have been the case 10, 20 years ago. So I guess like that, you know, like Wanderway Silva or Big Nog or Fedor when they won in their tournaments or went forward in their tournaments. I think that's
completely different because back then the people in the tournament were known superstars, whereas this is like 4 stars versus 4 unknowns.
I also think with those fighters with the fighters now is that Ryzen's goal is to promote Japanese stars who can get on Japanese variety shows or get, you know, large internet TikTok followers or whatever. And I think listen, you know, one of the biggest followers on TikTok in Japan apparently is Riki Chosu, the pro wrestler, retired pro wrestler. I don't know. Sorry, CJ, go ahead.
No, CJ didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
It's kind of weird that, you know, legendary Riki Chosu to the younger generation would only be known for his TikTok follow count rather than for professional wrestling.
I'll just say personally, though, I would be interested if this fight, if all foreigners won, just because it's clearly not what Ryzen wants. And sometimes it's just, I mean, you know, I don't know. Did anybody think that Tofik was going to win the tournament, the lightweight tournament when it first happened?
I mean, he was definitely.
We're kind of glad that he did.
I thought that Johnny Case was going to be the winner, and said, "Oh, it's this guy from Azerbaijan who comes in and steamrolls everybody."
Oh no! When I found out he was like training with Khabib back then, I was like, "Oh, he must be pretty good."
Oh yeah, no, but like, isn't it just funny that like, you know, you kind of think that like, oh, the former UFC fighters will have the advantage, or you know, the Bellator Patricio would be the ones that go forward and win, but no, instead it's a guy from all the way from Baku, Azerbaijan. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the foreigners. It makes it a little bit more interesting.
Well, it's bad.
There's nothing wrong with them foreigners.
Nothing wrong with
bad news for Ryzen, but it's good news for the fighters though, because they'll get exposure and they can come over to Bellator or the UFC.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's, you know, that's exactly, you know, how it is. But Tofik would not be in. Well, I shouldn't say. I don't think he'd be in Bellator as fast if he hadn't gone as far as he did in Ryzen. Would he? Yeah, that's the thing. Is that, yeah, you know, look at all the winners, all the foreign winners of these tournaments, like that have won in Ryzen. They go on to UFC or Bellator. Sucks that they can't stick in Ryzen.
Look. I mean, if Anastasia ends up winning, we could see her over at Invicta. You know, if she loses her, even if she loses her semifinal match, we could see her over at Invicta. So, and for Tura, I mean, same thing. You know, a lot of these foreigners will get a little bit of exposure for this as well. So,
I mean, come to think of it, Mark, I spoke with Fontour earlier today, and she basically said Invicta is not a point to go to. I mean, she's just happy that she's getting the chance to fight in Ryzen, and if she does lose out in this tournament, she's going to go back to Canada when Palace Athena has another show and defend her belt, or wait and see what's next for her.
Yeah, I
We
don't
got
think Invicta has like the pay to attract some of these fighters.
not anymore, at least.
Really.
You know,
Not
I think
anymore,
when
Well,
when
well, it's not necessarily to pay as much as is the ability for the UFC to see them better. And if they go through that, then it's pretty much Invicta or LFA. If you on either one of those cards, UFC is going to see you. If they think you're good enough, they're going to give you the opportunity.
well, because
I'm
when
just
they're on
waiting.
UFC Fight Pass, I do believe that UFC was helping them like with financial things like visas and all that. But when after that whole thing got, if you notice, like the lack of international talent since leaving the Fight Pass, it's really night and day. You know, Kanako was clearly scouted by UFC, and you know, probably Shu can confirm, but I have to believe that they definitely like fronted the costs of, you know, visas for her and all that. Something that Invicta would probably hurt them. Well, actually, well, it would be bad for them financially to do that. I mean, even when I talk.
Well, there's two situations that are going on right now. First of all, Shannon doesn't own Invicta anymore. Access TV does.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a bigger budget in terms of, you know, having that situation, because they also own Impact Wrestling, and there's a lot of foreign wrestlers that come out of there as well. So I think the visa situation can be easily talked off, you know, and all that as well. So I think that it'll be, you know, I think they're in a really interesting situation. Next time I talk to Shannon about it, we'll discuss, you know,
I'd be
we're
interested.
Get more fighters.
I definitely would be interested to hear that, because when they weren't with Access State, it was definitely, you saw a lot more just American talent on there. And then they have a lot more Brazilian talent now. At the last show, they had like one or two Brazilians, I believe. But yeah, no, I definitely would be interested to hear that. So I got
to think of it, when y'all were talking about, you know, Ryzen should join Access TV earlier, probably before we even started this damn podcast, but y'all were talking about Ryzen wanting to join Access TV, or the fact that they should. I don't think that it would be worth it for them to join Access TV, because nobody can steal. I mean, yeah, unless you download the Philo app and, you know, pay about a $10 subscription every month just to see it. You know, you're not going to be able to find Access TV. I mean, I highly doubt anybody will. And when it comes down to Access TV, you know, they're not going to waste all their time overnight just to have Ryzen on their airwaves. I mean, it was cool when they had Dream and Sengoku and K1 on their platform, but considering the fact that they now have to pay the advertisers and all that shit, they have to basically have shoulder programming like Inside MMA was for when they had a fight operation. I highly doubt if Ryzen going to Access TV would help them. It would more so hurt them, because nobody knows where to find Access TV unless you download the Philo app, PHILO, or, you know, it will probably only be shown in Canada through the Fight Network, which Access TV's parent company, Anthem, also owns.
Well, I mean, I would have to disagree. I mean, I have Sling TV and I have Access TV. I mean, it's more available, I think, than people think. You know, and they own, like I said, they own Impact Wrestling, they own whatever. But and I think they have a deal with. I think Access does have a deal with Fight TV where they will stream some of their stuff through them. So it wouldn't have to be a direct deal with Fight TV. It would be through the Access TV situation. But the reason why I made that recommendation is the fact that New Japan Pro Wrestling is one of the top shows right now on Access TV. So there is a lot of hype behind wanting to watch a lot of Japanese content. So to have a Ryzen card every 4 months on Access TV, I think is well worth it. Just because there's a lot of crossover in terms of their thing. They have Invicta, they have Impact Wrestling, they have New Japan Pro Wrestling. Having a Ryzen there would be a kind of an icing on the cake. And I'm not talking about Access buying Ryzen or anything like that. Just have them have the opportunity to stream it or whatever, as at least a lot better than having to have a complicated system where you have to go and get a streaming, pay for streaming on some unknown site that we don't know about yet, or anything else. I think it's still worth it. if they figure out a different solution right now, of course they are. But I think that with knowing that Access has that popularity in terms of the New Japan Pro Wrestling right now on their network, they would jump at a chance to be able to put the Ryzen events back on Access TV, since they're back in the MMA business.
Sorry, but we got to move on just to Carol's man's other two questions, and I'll start off with, since he's going to start in shortly. Will Tofik defeat Cindy Outlaw tonight in Bellator? CJ?
I think I'm
Sorry, what?
It's hard to predict. I mean, that's really hard to call. They're both very good. They both faced very different caliber of opponents. Tofik lost to Satoshi, had a bunch of weird circumstances around it. That, I mean, he was in the military. He wasn't really training. But Outlaw's really good. I think it's going to be a really close fight. I can't pick.
Mark, do you have any stake in that fight?
I don't have any stake in the fight. So, yeah, you're asking the wrong person.
Okay. Chris?
I mean, it's like I said to Carol Man 91 through the Focus Fights account. Hopefully so, in the case of putting over Ryzen's popularity. And when I mean, well, his and Ryzen's popularity, because if you look at the comments on your little live chat, Andrew, you'll probably realize Tofik was only popular. I mean, Tofik became popular off that Ryzen lightweight Grand Prix run less than 3 years ago. You do know that, right?
Well, yes, yeah.
And obviously, I asked a question to Shingo and Drake on the Broughton Horizon podcast, saying something if Jiri Prohaska went and boost up the UFC's popularity. I mean, boost up Ryzen's popularity just because Yuri's a former Ryzen fighter. They said, no, I dare to disagree. But still, though, when it comes to former foreign champions like a Yuri Prohaska in the UFC or like Tofik Musayev and Ryzen, all they got to do is keep winning. And people will know more about, where they used to fight at. And hopefully more eyes will get towards Ryzen,
Mm-hmm. And last question before we head out, that's a Carol Man asked, will Ryzen ever do a show outside Japan? I picked Tofik. My answer is never. CJ?
Oh, come on.
Not in the near future.
Okay,
I'm going to say never, but not in the near future.
At least not within the next 5 years, unless a miracle happens. Mark?
What was the question again?
Will Ryzen ever do a show outside Japan?
No, they won't. Absolutely not.
Okay. And
I think they have a better chance at doing a landmark show in Guam or Azerbaijan more than they would doing an actual numbered show outside of Japan in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I do like the idea of the landmark hidden location being Coffee Slut in Guam.
Well,
I will say this though. I won't be surprised if Bellator and Ryzen do a co-promotion over at Madison Square Garden. That's
different. I don't like. I think he's asking if like a Ryzen branded show like Pride did in Vegas, in the West Coast, and I don't think, unless it's Bellator and Ryzen, I don't think it's ever going to be just Ryzen at Madison Square Garden or Ryzen at the Staples Center or whatever.
Yeah, they call
Ryzen.
it Crypto.com Arena now.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Or Ryzen at Coffee Slut, though that would be very funny if they did. That'd be the best place too. And unfortunately, we do have to head out because I will be watching the Bellator show live. CJ, tell us what you're doing on your side of the earth.
Yeah, so sogo-kaku.com. The podcast with Shu keeps getting pushed back because he's crazy busy and there's a bunch of issues coming up with some of his fighters. So when he's available, we'll do that probably next week. I think Babalu, Jack, and I also have a podcast that we're doing, and the second episode will be coming out soon. And I'm releasing a bunch of articles this week for this tournament, so it should be fun. Obviously, but I would say this tournament does have one glaring omission, and that is that Pancraze's queen is not part of this tournament, Karen Pravjara. So maybe next year's tournament we'll get Nori and Karen Pravjara on the tournament as well.
Do you find that a little bit baffling that it's you'd think that Ryzen would kind of like grasp and understand the Pravaja former date team. But like it seems like they seemingly have no interest in that team for whatever reason.
Too advanced. It's too advanced. They're too good.
They're
just
good?
Worried that Karen's gonna come in and smash everybody.
Okay.
She'll be in the UFC in a couple years, no doubt. I mean, you saw Nori fight with that type of stance and skills. There's no limit.
I hope your podcast you talk about that pancreas fight, because I hope both of you like rage it, like what insane judge was like, oh yeah, that's a draw. Like the judge.
The one judge who scored the first round 10-8 scored the other rounds all for Karen, so it was a draw. The other people only gave Kuriyama a 10-9 for the opening round.
What a crackhead judge! So he thought that Nori won the first round.
No, so one judge said she lost the first round 8-10.
Yeah,
but then he gave her 2 and 3, so it evened out to a draw.
Oh, what? I have no idea. Sure, okay. And also plug your YouTube channel. You got you got an up and coming YouTube channel.
Yeah. Very popular, very sexy. So come to my site, Sogokaku. The links are all there. On my Twitter as well. You can find it. I'm around. So more and more podcasts.
Yeah. And Mark, what have you got on your neck of the woods?
Well, I'm taking a little break from Wombat Sports, but I think I could probably say that we're going to be probably back at Wombat Sports come Invicta FC 50, which hopefully will be a little bit later on this year. I want to be there for the 50th card, so we'll kind of hang out and see what goes on with there. If I talk to Shannon before, I may post something real quick about a couple of things that are going on with Invicta. I've been meaning to kind of catch up with Shannon about it. I'll ask you a question about the visas and international talent as well, as you guys recommended. I'm sorry I was a little distracted because I just noticed that the Veda Ortega has upset Vanessa Bordo by submission. So I was a little bit shocked that ended up happening. But
it's a good fight. It was a good fight. I definitely recommend watching the entire fight. It's a really good fight. I was watching it as we were having our discussion here.
So I was absolutely kind of surprised on that as well. I've got a lot of projects that kind of in the back burner. I think I'm going to leave until next year. I got some interviews done for a possible documentary podcast, which is going to be talking a lot about a lot of the early women's division pioneers. Some of the interesting stories behind some of the more interesting things, because I don't know if anybody caught it, but this week Invicta had actually talked about who they thought it was on the Mount Rushmore of the women's divisions. A lot of Rondas, a lot of Ginas, a lot of Amanda Nunes, but there were a lot of people that people kind of forgot. Megumi being number one, they didn't know who Megumi was. So I'm kind of going back into the basically the back into the history of before it's tentatively called the B4R podcast. It stands for Before Ronda. So it'll be anything that's like before Ronda, even before Gina. We talked a lot. I talked a lot about some of the first ever all-female cards that were on in history, in the thing. Some of the early stars, some of the tragedies, some of the very kind of cool stuff that happened before the women's divisions were even popular. So that'll be something that
what, Mark? I bet you'll probably have a lot of time to talk about, the greatness of Erica Montoya and what could have been, or the greatness of hook and shoot tournaments.
She was actually in one of the UFC video games.
I already have those interviews already in the tank. Although Erica, for some odd reason, Erica is a ghost. I cannot find where she is or whatever, because I'd love to interview her, because her story is very interesting. She just went up and disappeared. There was supposed to be a UFC women's fight back in 2004, 2005. And there's a little story behind that. There's some stuff that I don't understand why it did not happen. All I know is that after the cancellation, Erica went into hiding and her opponent died. So it's like, it's a crazy story.
You never say no to the Fertitas.
I'm not laughing out of it's just like, oh, she.
I think you muted yourself.
Oh, sorry.
We-
I was just laughing. I was just laughing because like it's like, oh, she just appeared and then her opponent died. It's like just such a random occurrence of randomness.
Isn't Erica Montoya
Yeah.
in one of the UFC video games?
I
Yes,
believe-
she
yeah.
did.
is.
Yeah.
It's so
But
interesting.
she no, she just quit the business and then she left. And I would love to get an interview with her. I think there's a story behind why she left, and I got some stories about that from other fighters. But I'd love to interview her and sit down and kind of get that. But I think pretty much she put that behind her. And I said I cannot find her. I don't know what happened to her after she left mixed martial arts. So yeah, there were a lot of interesting stories back then. So I've already got some already. And some of those interviews are already done. So I'll get back to getting everything edited up into like little documentary kind of podcast things coming 2023. So look out for that.
I'll also say this: if any, regardless of your thoughts on him or her, Gina Carano on Joe Rogan recently, like she had some stories about like what it was like to train before there was women's MMA, and it was really like some very interesting tidbits and stories that she was talking about on when she was a guest on his about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I definitely also recommend that.
Yeah, one of the stories I'm going to go into eventually is the beginning of the all women's team in Jackson's, which is the first one here in the United States, I believe. I think there was an all women's team out of Japan first. It seems like everything's out of Japan first. First all female card in 1997 was out of Japan, and then the second the first all female team was out of Japan as well. But I want to get into Jackson's, and because like I think I traced Jackson's as the one here in the United States that had the oldest all female team and all that as well. So I'll probably get into that, and I'll get into the little bit about some of the history about women training in the gym. It used to be that women will cause drama and all this as well. So there was always a stigma behind that, and how they kind of overcame that. So that'll be something I'll look into as well.
I think also a good person to talk to as well. Sorry, CJ, go ahead. Please
tell me you're going to interview Julie Kedzie about the time she met Vladimir Putin.
She's talked about that several times. She's talked about that she's talked about that on Joe Rogan's podcast when she was on there.
That was an amazing story.
She's talked about that several times. So yeah. I'm interested in her writing a book. So hopefully, she'll get to the point where she wants to write a book. But I don't think she wants to do that as of yet. But
Josh Barnett, is also a good person to talk to.
Another chapter too. I've already interviewed a couple people from the Bodog days, so I want to kind of dive into that a little bit as well.
Josh Barnett was also training people at AACC way back when, I believe as well. I think you mentioned that a few times, CJ. So he was training women before in Japan, before it was like, I guess, commonplace for women to even train routinely for fights here in America. During a time when Dana White would say that no women's fighters would ever main event UFC. If anybody, which people seemingly have forgotten that he actually said.
Will women ever fight Eagle FC? That's the real question.
That's a bigger question. Chris, I hate to ask you to speed run, but whatever you can, tell us everything that you're doing for Focus Fights. I'm glad that Focus Fights is back from the dead, and take us out.
Well, obviously, why don't you tell people about how people can access you and tell us about MMA Sucker?
Okay, quickly. Personal account is AbeBenja1 on Instagram and Twitter, and also as well, MMA Sucker doing some things for PFL, Ryzen next week, and then reporting some grappling matches tomorrow that are going to be up here in the East Coast area. So I'll be doing that for them. I think that's all done. So.
And as for me, Andrew, and your time is up, mine as well. You can follow me on Twitter at ChrisGary92. You can follow me on Instagram at ChristianGary1992. And you can check out more about Focus Fights. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Search for us through Google or DuckDuckGo. You'll be sure to find us there. Just make sure to use parentheses because there's so many people that use focus and fights in the same sentence. You can't really tell which is which. But still, point of the matter is Focus Fights audio. I just wrapped up my craziest week of interviews ever. I mean, I'm pretty sure I put over everything that there was to talk about, but still though, Focus Fights Audio is gonna have a big Ryzen podcast around this time next week. I'm gonna be working my ass off over the next few days just to get that shit done because of all the interviews that I've had this week, especially involving Ryzen fighters. But be on the lookout for that. Hopefully it'll be uploaded before this next fight card happens. But other than that, you can check us out at We Are Ryzen Pod on Twitter. That's WeareRizinPod, all in one word. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can, well, hopefully when we get our shit together, you can check us out as far as podcasting go on Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much every other podcast platform there is, just like Focus Fights Audio. But other than that, I'm about to go ahead on and go. I see some fighting on my screen. And for all of us, to all of you, we thank y'all for tuning in. And until next time, fight fans, we say to you in closing. And on that note, we done. Peace, y'all. Later.
Hey, before we go, Ryzen 37 full preview on Sunday. Time TBD on time. Until then, everybody take care and see you hopefully Sunday.
Later.
Yeah.